The station drifted in a quiet orbit around nothing in particular, which was exactly how Owen liked it. It had no official designation anymore, just a faded registry code half erased by years of micrometeorite dust. And most passing ships ignored it the way civilized people ignored a flickering light in a distant alley. Owen called it home, though he suspected the station itself would object if it had the emotional capacity. It complained enough already in the language of faulty relays and groaning bulkheads. He was halfway inside an open maintenance panel, arguing with a power distributor that had decided, quite stubbornly, that it no longer believed in electricity when the alert pinged. Owen froze, wrench in hand. The station did not ping unless something important was happening, or unless it wanted to annoy him specifically. He pulled himself out of the panel, bumped his head on the edge, and muttered something unkind about engineers who designed tight spaces, namely himself 10 years ago. "All right," he said to the empty room, brushing metal dust off his sleeves. "If this is another ghost signal, I swear I'm venting the sensors into space." The console flickered to life, projecting a weak but persistent signature. Not a ghost, not debris. A ship, a very broken ship. It drifted into visual range moments later, emerging from the dark like a thought that had taken too long to form. Its structure was unlike anything Owen had seen. Smooth curves intersecting with geometric precision, surfaces that seemed to shimmer between solid and liquid. Sections of its hull were scorched, others fractured, and something along its spine pulsed unevenly, like a failing heartbeat. Owen leaned closer to the screen. "Well," he murmured, "that's either very advanced engineering or a terrible design choice." The ship did not respond, which Owen took as agreement. He hesitated only briefly before initiating a docking sequence. Curiosity, he had learned long ago, was a stronger force than self-preservation. Also, he was bored, and boredom had a way of making bad decisions feel like excellent ideas. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying clang, though the alien vessel seemed to resist slightly, as if unsure whether it trusted the station. Owen patted the console. "Relax," he said. "I only take things apart when they deserve it." The airlock cycled with a long, dramatic hiss, as though it, too, felt this moment required proper atmosphere. Owen stepped through, toolkit slung over his shoulder, and immediately noticed that the corridor beyond was wrong. Not dangerous, just unfamiliar. The walls were smooth but not metallic, warm to the touch, and faint patterns moved beneath the surface like slow currents. "All right," he whispered, "definitely not standard." He followed the dim lighting deeper into the ship, guided by the intermittent flicker of failing systems. The silence was thick, broken only by the soft hum of something struggling to remain alive. Then he found them. Two figures sat against the far wall of what he assumed was a control chamber, their posture upright despite the obvious strain. At first glance, they looked human, too human in fact, as if someone had designed them based on an ideal rather than reality. But then he saw the ears, long, elegant, tapering to subtle points that twitched slightly as he entered. Twins. Their resemblance was exact, but not identical. One held herself with a sharp, focused intensity, her eyes already scanning him as if calculating his structural integrity. The other watched with a softer expression, though no less alert, as if weighing not just what he was, but what he might become. Owen stopped a few steps away, suddenly aware that he had not prepared a speech for this scenario. "Hi," he said, because it seemed like a reasonable start. "I'm Owen. I fix things. Usually machines. Sometimes my own mistakes." The twin on the left tilted her head slightly. "You are the station's operator." "Operator, engineer, occasional victim of poor life choices," he replied. "Depends on the day." A brief pause followed. The twins exchanged a glance. Quick, precise, meaningful in a way Owen could not decode. "We require assistance," the other one said, her voice calm, measured. "Our vessel is critically compromised." Owen nodded, stepping forward cautiously. "Yeah, I noticed the part where it looks like it lost a fight with a small moon. What happened?" "A navigation miscalculation," the first twin said. "A very large miscalculation," the second added. Owen winced. "Hate it when that happens." He crouched near a damaged console, pulling out a diagnostic tool. The interface resisted him at first, then adapted, reshaping itself into something he could understand. That alone made him grin. "Oh, I like this," he said. "Your ship's smarter than most people I've worked with." "It is not sentient," the first twin replied. "Shame," Owen said. "It would have been good company." He worked quickly, hands moving with practiced ease as he traced the failures cascading through the system. The ship wasn't just damaged. It was holding itself together through sheer stubbornness, like an engine refusing to die out of spite. "You're lucky," he said after a moment. "Another hour and this thing would have turned into very artistic debris." The twins did not respond immediately. When they did, their voices were quieter. "We are aware." Owen glanced at them, noticing for the first time the subtle tension in their posture, the way their hands rested near each other without quite touching. "Hey," he said lightly, "good news is I'm excellent at stopping things from becoming debris. It's one of my top skills, right after complaining and making bad jokes." A faint shift passed between them, something almost like relief, though it was carefully restrained. "Can you repair it?" the second twin asked. Owen leaned back, considering the tangled systems, the alien logic, the sheer audacity of the design. Then he smiled. "Yeah," he said, "I think I can." The ship did not thank him. Owen noticed that first. Not because he expected gratitude from machinery. He had long since accepted that most machines expressed appreciation by not exploding. But because this one felt like it should. It adapted to his tools, reshaped its interfaces to match his language, even pulsed in steady rhythm as if breathing easier with each repair. And yet no triumphant hum, no elegant confirmation tone, just silence. "Rude," Owen muttered, tightening a conduit that had clearly lost the will to function. "I save your life, and this is the thanks I get." "It does not understand gratitude," came the voice behind him. Owen didn't turn immediately. He was halfway inside a partially open wall, legs sticking out into the corridor, and experience had taught him that sudden movements in that position led to unnecessary bruising. "Neither do most people I've met," he replied, "but they usually fake it better." He slid out carefully, brushing off his hands, and found both twins standing behind him now. They moved quietly, too quietly, and Owen made a mental note to install a bell on at least one of them. "You should be resting," he said, glancing between them. "Your ship's been trying very hard to die. That tends to be stressful for passengers." "We are not passengers," the one on the right said. Her tone carried a faint edge, though her posture remained composed. "We are the operators." "Right," Owen said. "Operators. My mistake. In that case, your ship has been trying very hard to fire you." The other twin almost smiled. It was subtle, barely a shift in expression. But Owen caught it. Progress. He leaned back against the wall, crossing his arms. "Okay, status update. Your primary systems are stabilized. Your navigation core is still convinced that up is a suggestion, and whatever this thing is." He tapped a curved structure that responded with a faint ripple of light. "Is either your engine or your ship's attempt at modern art." "It is both," the first twin said. Owen blinked. "Of course it is." There was a pause, the kind that wasn't empty, but full of things not yet said. Owen had grown used to that kind of silence. It usually meant someone was about to ask a question they didn't quite want answered. "You have repaired critical systems," the second twin said at last. "You have prevented total system collapse." "Yeah," Owen said. "That's generally the goal. Collapse tends to be bad for long-term plans." The twins exchanged another glance. This one lingered longer. Owen straightened slightly. "Okay, I don't like that look. That's the look people give right before something complicated happens." The first twin stepped forward. "Engineer Owen," she said, her voice precise, almost formal now. "You have preserved our lives." Owen raised a hand. "Let's not get dramatic. I preserved your ship. Your lives were just included in the package." "In our culture," the second twin continued, ignoring him with impressive focus, "such an act is not considered incidental." Owen lowered his hand slowly. "I'm starting to feel like I should have charged more." The twins moved in unison. It was not aggressive. It was not threatening. It was deliberate. They knelt. Owen stared at them. For a moment, he was certain he had misinterpreted something. Perhaps this was a standard maintenance protocol, Perhaps alien ships required ceremonial kneeling before properly functioning again. Okay, he said carefully. Either I missed a step in the repair process, or this is new. The first twin bowed her head slightly. We acknowledge our life debt. The debt is shared, the second added. Owen blinked again. Shared? Right. That sounds manageable. You have saved us equally, the first continued. Therefore, the second said, we are equally bound. Owen's brain, which had successfully handled complex quantum circuitry and once fixed a reactor using a piece of kitchen equipment, suddenly refused to cooperate. Bound, he repeated. That's a strong word. It is a precise word, the first twin said. Owen rubbed his face. I'm going to need you to define bound, preferably in a way that does not involve me regretting my career choices. The twins lifted their heads. Their expressions were calm, certain, completely serious. We will marry you, they said in perfect unison. Owen did not speak. He did not move. He considered briefly the possibility that he had inhaled something toxic in the engine room. Then he laughed. It started small, a quiet chuckle that quickly grew into something less controlled. He leaned against the wall, shaking his head. That's good, yes, he said. That's very good. You almost had me there. The twins did not laugh. Owen's laughter slowed, then stopped. You're not joking. No, the second twin said. Owen straightened, suddenly very aware of the situation again. Okay. All right. Let's walk this back a little. I fix your ship, you thank me. Maybe you give me something valuable that doesn't involve lifelong commitment, and then we all go our separate ways. That's how this usually works. This is how it works for us, the first twin replied. Owen pointed at them. Yes, but I am not us. I am me, and me does not accept marriage proposals immediately after a repair job. It is not immediate, the second twin said. It is required. Owen paused. Required. Yes. He looked from one to the other, searching for any sign of hesitation, any hint that this was negotiable. He found none. Okay, he said slowly. New plan. I'm going to assume this is a cultural misunderstanding, and you're going to explain it in a way that makes a lot more sense and involves significantly less marriage. The twins remained kneeling, completely unmoved. Owen sighed, running a hand through his hair. I fix one ship, he muttered, and suddenly I have two fiancés. This is why I don't go outside. Owen did not accept the proposal. He also did not run away, which he later decided counted as impressive restraint. The twins were still kneeling. They had not moved. Owen had tried waiting them out. That had been his first strategy. It worked on stubborn machines, occasionally on customers, and once on a vending unit that refused to acknowledge coins. But the twins remained perfectly still, as if time itself had agreed to leave them alone. This is not going to work, he said finally, pacing a slow circle around them. You can't just stay like that. It's uncomfortable to look at. It is a position of respect, Sarah said. And of commitment, Lyra added. Owen stopped. Yes, I gathered that part. It's the commitment I'm having trouble with. They did not stand. Owen sighed. All right, new rule. Nobody gets married while kneeling in a damaged spaceship. It sets a bad precedent. That is not a recognized rule, Sarah replied. It is now, Owen said. I just made it. There was a pause. Then slowly, the twins rose to their feet. Not because they accepted his rule, Owen could tell that much, but because something in his tone had shifted from humor to something firmer. Progress again, small but real. Good, Owen said, relieved. Step 1, standing. Step 2, explaining. Preferably in a way that does not end with me accidentally married. Lyra inclined her head slightly. You misunderstand the nature of the bond. I hope so, Owen said, because right now my understanding is very alarming. Sarah stepped closer, her long ear twitching faintly as she studied him. Up close, Owen noticed details he had missed before. The subtle asymmetry in her expression, the way her eyes tracked not just his movements but the tools at his side. The faint curiosity that seemed to exist beneath her otherwise precise demeanor. In our culture, she began, a life debt is not symbolic. It is structural. Owen blinked. Structural? Yes. It defines our place within society. When a life is saved, the one who saves becomes integrated into that structure. Owen rubbed his temples. Integrated. I don't like where this is going, Lyra continued, her voice softer but no less certain. When two lives are saved equally, the integration must also be equal. If it is not, the imbalance creates dishonor. For us, dishonor is not merely social, it is isolating. Meaning? Owen asked. Meaning we would be severed from our own kind, Sarah said. Permanently. Owen stopped pacing. That at least sounded serious. Cha, you're saying if I don't agree to this, he said slowly, you get exiled. Yes, because I fixed your ship. You preserved our lives, Lyra corrected gently. Owen stared at them. Then he pointed at the nearest wall. That wall preserved your lives. I just stopped it from falling apart. The distinction is irrelevant, Sarah said. It is extremely relevant, Owen insisted. One of those options does not require me to become part of a cultural system I do not understand. There was a silence again, heavier this time. Owen exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Okay, let's assume for a moment that I take this seriously, which I am starting to do against my better judgment. You're telling me that the only way to avoid social catastrophe is for both of you to marry me. Yes, they said together. Owen nodded slowly. All right, counterpoint. No. They did not react immediately, but something shifted. Subtle, almost invisible. The certainty in their posture tightened. You refuse the bond, Sarah said. I refuse the requirement, Owen corrected. Big difference. There is no difference, Lyra said. There is to me, Owen replied. And since I'm apparently a very important part of this situation, I feel like my opinion should matter. Sarah studied him again, more intently now. You do not value the bond. Owen hesitated. That's not true, he said after a moment. I just don't accept it when it's forced. Lyra's expression shifted slightly. It is not forced, it is owed. That's the same thing with better branding, Owen said. For the first time, Sarah looked uncertain. It was brief, but Owen saw it. He stepped forward, lowering his voice slightly. Look, I get it. Your culture has rules. Mine does too. But where I come from, if someone says they have to marry you because they owe you, that's not a good start. It is a necessary start, Sarah said, though her tone lacked its earlier precision. Necessary doesn't mean right, Owen replied. The words lingered in the air between them. Lyra glanced at her sister, then back at Owen. Then what would you propose? Owen smiled faintly. Finally, a better question. He turned, gesturing toward the corridor, toward the half-repaired systems, toward the ship that was slowly, stubbornly returning to life. You don't need to decide this right now, he said. In fact, I strongly recommend you don't. Your ship still thinks physics is optional, and I haven't even started on your navigation core. That does not change the bond, Sarah said. No, Owen agreed, but it changes the timing. He looked at them both, more serious now. Instead of locking yourselves into something because you have to, why not take some time and figure out if you actually want it? The twins were silent. Owen continued, his voice steady. We traveled together for a while. I help you fix everything properly. You show me how your systems work without trying to confuse me on purpose. They do not, Sarah began. They absolutely do, Owen said. I've seen it. Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost amused. And during that time, Owen went on, you decide for yourselves. No pressure, no obligation, just choice. Sarah frowned faintly. Choice does not erase the debt. Maybe not, Owen said, but it changes what you do with it. Another silence. This one felt different, less rigid. Lyra spoke first. You would remain with us. For a while, Owen said, assuming your ship doesn't try to kill me. It will not, Sarah said. It already tried once, Owen replied. I'm still holding a grudge. Lyra's expression softened further, and this time, the hint of a smile was unmistakable. We accept this temporary arrangement, she said. Sarah hesitated. Then slowly she nodded. The debt remains, she added. Of course it does, Owen said. I wouldn't want to make things too easy. He turned back toward the open panel, grabbing his tools. All right, he said, a hint of his usual humor returning. Step 1. We fix your ship so it stops making threatening noises. Step 2. We travel. Step 3. We figure out what to do about the fact that you both proposed to me at the same time, which is still the strangest thing that has ever happened in my life. He paused, glancing back at them. And I once repaired a reactor using a cooking utensil. For the first time, both twins smiled. It was small, but it was real. The ship no longer sounded like it was dying. It still sounded questionable. But Owen considered that an improvement. He stood in the central systems chamber, staring at a floating interface that had reorganized itself for the third time in 5 minutes. Symbols shifted, lines curved into shapes that almost resembled diagrams, then dissolved again as if the ship had changed its mind halfway through explaining itself. You do realize, Owen said, arms crossed, that if you keep redesigning your own interface, I'm going to start charging you extra for emotional distress. It is optimizing, Sarah replied from behind him. It is improvising, Owen corrected. Badly. Sarah stepped closer, her attention fixed not on the display but on Owen's hands. He noticed that quickly. She had been doing it for hours, watching not just what he fixed, but how he fixed it. You are not following its intended logic, she said. I noticed, Owen replied. Its intended logic tried to send your navigation system into a star. That was a minor misalignment. That was a very large fire, Owen said. Lyra's voice drifted in from the doorway. It was, in fact, a very large fire. Owen pointed at her without looking. Thank you. Finally, someone with a healthy respect for catastrophic failure. Lyra stepped into the room, her expression calm but her eyes observant. Unlike Sarah, she didn't focus on the systems directly. She watched the interaction, the space between actions, the rhythm of their conversation. You adapt quickly, she said to Owen. I panic efficiently, he replied. It looks similar. Sarah leaned forward slightly, studying the way he adjusted a control node manually instead of letting the ship recalibrate it. You bypass its correction protocols, she said. I override them, Owen corrected. That is inefficient. That is effective, Owen said. There's a difference. Sarah's brow furrowed faintly. The system is designed to correct itself. And yet, Owen gestured at the still flickering interface. Here we are. There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, Sarah reached out. Not to the interface, but to Owen's tool. Her fingers hovered just above it, hesitating for the briefest moment before making contact. The ship responded instantly, the display shifting into a more stable configuration. Owen blinked. Okay, that's new. It recognizes my input, she said. Clearly, Owen replied. It likes you more than me. Sarah tilted her head slightly. You are disruptive. I prefer creative, Owen said. Lyra smiled faintly. You are both. Owen turned back to the interface, watching as the system settled into something that almost resembled cooperation. All right, he said. Let's try something. You do your thing, I do mine, and we meet in the middle without the ship attempting to rewrite reality. That is acceptable, Sarah said. That is a terrible plan, Owen replied, but it's the best one we have. They worked in silence for a while. Not the heavy silence from before, the kind filled with tension and uncertainty, but something lighter, more focused. The ship responded differently now, less erratic, as if it had decided that resisting Owen was no longer worth the effort. Sarah adjusted a series of control nodes, her movements precise and efficient. Owen followed, reinforcing the changes with his own modifications, occasionally muttering under his breath when the system tried to revert back. Lyra observed. She moved occasionally, offering suggestions or corrections, but mostly she watched, tracking the way Sarah leaned slightly closer when Owen explained something, the way Owen slowed his pace when Sarah asked questions, even when those questions came in rapid succession. You hesitate, Lyra said suddenly. Owen glanced at her. About what? When she asks, Lyra nodded toward Sarah. You adjust your explanation. Owen shrugged. She's trying to understand. Sarah didn't look up. I do understand. You're trying to understand differently, Owen said. There's a difference. Sarah paused. That time she did look at him. Explain, she said. Owen leaned back against the console, considering his words. You approach problems like they have a correct solution already built in, Like the system just needs to be aligned properly. That is accurate. Yeah, Owen said, but sometimes there isn't a correct solution. Sometimes you just make one. Sarah frowned slightly. That is inefficient. Owen smiled. You keep saying that, and you keep ignoring it, because it works. Sarah studied him again, that same quiet curiosity returning. Your methods are inconsistent. Thank you, Owen said. That was not a compliment. I'm choosing to take it as one. Lyra let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. The ship hummed, the sound smoother now, more stable. The interface settled into a steady configuration, no longer shifting unpredictably. Owen tapped the console lightly. There. See? Not dead. Sarah glanced at the display, then back at him. It is functional. That's high praise coming from you, Owen said. It is accurate. Owen grinned. I'll take it. There was a moment of quiet again. But this time, it wasn't about uncertainty or tension. It was about something else. Sarah stepped back slightly, her gaze lingering on the system before shifting, just briefly, to Owen. Your approach is unusual. Owen shrugged. So am I. Lyra moved closer, her voice softer now. It is effective. Owen glanced between them. You're both going to keep analyzing me like I'm part of the ship, aren't you? Yes, Sarah said. Absolutely, Lyra added. Owen sighed. I should have seen that coming. He turned back to the console, picking up his tools again. All right, next step. We fix your navigation core so it stops trying to send us into interesting but fatal locations. Sarah stepped beside him again, closer this time. It does not intentionally. It absolutely does, Owen said. I've seen the coordinates. One of them was inside a gas giant. That was a theoretical path. That was a terrible idea. Lyra smiled again, just slightly. The tension that had once defined the space between them had shifted, softened, reshaped into something else, something lighter, something that felt less like obligation and more like possibility. Owen adjusted the next set of controls, glancing briefly at Sarah as she followed his movements more closely than before. Careful, he said. If you keep watching like that, you're going to start picking up bad habits. Sarah's expression didn't change, but her ear twitched again. I already have, she said. And for once, Owen didn't have a quick response. The navigation core did not trust Owen. Owen noticed this almost immediately. All right, he said, crouched in front of a softly glowing structure that looked less like machinery and more like a suspended thought. We're going to have a problem, you and me. It does not recognize you as an operator, Sarah said from his left. It barely recognizes itself as a functioning system, Owen replied. So I feel like that's a bit unfair. The core pulsed faintly, its surface shifting like liquid glass. Coordinates flickered into existence, rearranging themselves before Owen could fully read them. Is it supposed to do that? He asked. Yes, Sarah said. No, Lyra added calmly from behind them. Owen pointed without looking. Thank you. I'm going to start listening to you more. Lyra inclined her head slightly. That would be wise. Sarah did not respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her attention fixed entirely on the core. Her hand hovered over it, hesitating for just a fraction of a second before making contact. The structure reacted instantly, stabilizing under her touch. Owen raised an eyebrow. It listens to you. It responds to my neural imprint, Sarah said. Of course it does, Owen muttered, because why would anything in this ship be simple? He leaned forward, examining the stabilized projection. The coordinates now held steady, though they still shifted at the edges like they were considering better options. You designed this? He asked. Sarah nodded. Partially. Owen glanced at her. Remind me to have a long conversation with you about why your designs try to improvise navigation mid-flight. It increases adaptability. It increases the chances of becoming a cautionary tale, Owen said. Lyra stepped closer, folding her hands loosely in front of her. It was not intended to fail. No system is, Owen replied. They just do. There was a quiet pause. Sarah's gaze shifted, not to the core, but to Owen. You assume failure as a constant. I assume it as a possibility, Owen corrected. There's a difference. If you expect things to go wrong, you're ready when they do. That is inefficient, Sarah said automatically. Owen smiled slightly. And yet, here we are again. Sarah didn't argue this time. Instead, she studied him, really studied him, with that same focused curiosity she had shown before. But now there was something else beneath it, something less analytical. Owen cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the silence stretching between them. Right. Navigation core. Let's fix the part where it tries to creatively interpret coordinates. He reached toward the interface, but before his hand could make contact, the core flickered sharply, rejecting the input. The projection distorted, coordinates collapsing into meaningless patterns. Owen pulled his hand back. Okay, that felt personal. It is rejecting unauthorized access, Sarah said. I am authorized, Owen replied. I authorize myself. That is not how authorization functions. It should be, Owen said. It would make my life much easier. Lyra's voice came from just behind his shoulder. Perhaps you should not approach it directly. Owen glanced back at her. I thought that was the whole point of fixing things. Not always, she said. Sarah looked between them, then back at the core. It responds to cooperative input. Owen tilted his head. Define cooperative. Sarah hesitated. Then slowly she reached for his wrist. Owen froze. Her touch was light, precise, as if she were adjusting a delicate instrument rather than grabbing a person. She guided his hand forward, aligning it with hers as they both approached the core together. The moment their hands moved in unison, the core stabilized. The projection sharpened instantly, coordinates locking into place with a clarity Owen hadn't seen before. Okay, Owen said quietly. That's new. It recognizes synchronized input, Sarah said, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. Owen didn't move his hand. Neither did she. Right, he said after a moment. So your ship prefers teamwork? Yes. That's inconveniently symbolic. Lyra's voice softened slightly. It is consistent with our design principles. Owen glanced at her, then back at the core. Of course it is. There was a pause. Neither he nor Sarah pulled away immediately. The core pulsed steadily beneath their combined touch, its systems finally behaving in a way that resembled cooperation rather than rebellion. Owen exhaled slowly. All right, we can work with this. Sarah nodded, though her gaze lingered, not on the core, but on their hands. Owen noticed. He cleared his throat again. You know, for the record, this is not how I usually fix things. It is effective, Sarah said. You're starting to sound like me. That is concerning. Owen smiled faintly. It should be. Lyra stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. You adapt to each other. Owen shrugged slightly, though the movement was limited by the fact that his hand was still very much where Sarah had placed it. We're trying not to crash into a star. That tends to encourage cooperation. That is not all, Lyra said. Owen didn't respond to that. Instead, he focused on the stabilized interface, adjusting the coordinates carefully now that the system was finally willing to behave. All right, he said. Navigation core is less dangerous, still questionable, but less likely to kill us immediately. That is an improvement, Sarah said. I aim for small victories, Owen replied. This time when Sarah withdrew her hand, it was slower. Owen pretended not to notice. He stepped back, stretching his shoulders slightly. Next step, we test it. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Immediately, Owen nodded. If it's going to fail, I'd rather it do it while I'm watching. That is not reassuring, Sarah said. It's not supposed to be, Owen replied. He moved toward the main console, glancing back at them briefly. Try not to propose anything while we're in motion, he added. I'd like to survive at least one flight without unexpected life decisions. Lyra's lips curved faintly. We will consider that. Sarah didn't respond, but as they took their positions, her attention shifted, not just to the systems, but to Owen again. And this time, the curiosity in her expression was unmistakably something more. The ship moved. At first it was subtle, just a shift in the hum beneath Owen's feet, a change in the way the walls seemed to breathe. Then the stars outside the viewport stretched, bent, and reassembled themselves into something that looked almost intentional. Owen leaned forward in his seat, gripping the edge of the console. "All right," he said slowly. "We are either traveling correctly, or we have just invented a very artistic way to disappear." "The trajectory is stable," Sarah said, her hands moving with controlled precision across the interface. "That's what worries me," Owen replied. "It looks confident." Lyra stood behind them, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp. "Confidence is not inherently negative. It is when it's wrong," Owen said. The ship pulsed, not gently this time. A sharp ripple ran through the structure, like something deep inside it had decided to wake up and immediately regretted the decision. Sarah stiffened. "That was not expected." Owen pointed at the console. "That is my favorite sentence. Right after, this should be fine." The interface flickered violently. Coordinates scrambled, then reformed into patterns Owen did not recognize. "Okay," he said, leaning closer. "That's new and concerning." Lyra stepped forward. "The system is recalibrating." "It's over-calibrating," Owen replied. "There's a difference." Another pulse, stronger. The ship lurched, not physically, but in a way that made Owen's sense of direction briefly give up and go somewhere else. "All right," he said quickly. "We're going to need to stop doing that." Sarah's hands moved faster now, her earlier precision sharpened by urgency. The navigation core is attempting to optimize the route. "Tell it to stop optimizing," Owen said. "We don't need optimal. We need not dead." "It is not responding to my override." Owen blinked. "That seems like a design flaw." "It is not a flaw," Sarah said. "It is." "Very stubborn," Owen interrupted. "Yes, I've noticed." The lights dimmed briefly, then flared again. The hum of the ship deepened, shifting into a frequency that made Owen's teeth feel slightly uncomfortable. Lyra's voice remained calm. "We are approaching a gravitational distortion." Owen turned his head slowly. "A what?" "A distortion." "Yes, I heard the word. I'm questioning the decision." "The system selected this path," Sarah said. "Of course it did," Owen muttered. "Because it hates me." The viewport flickered, revealing something ahead, a region of space that did not behave like space. Light bent inward, stars stretching into thin lines that curved around an invisible center. Owen stared. "That looks incorrect." "It is a compressed gravity well," Lyra said. "Great," Owen replied. "I was hoping for something simple." The ship lurched again. This time the interface went dark. Completely dark. Owen froze. "Okay, that's worse." Sarah's hands hovered over the controls. "I have lost input." Owen leaned forward, tapping the console. "Hey, system! This is not the part where you stop working." No response. Lyra's voice remained steady, but there was a subtle tension beneath it now. "We are still moving." "Yes," Owen said. "I can feel that. I would prefer not to feel that." He exhaled sharply, forcing himself to focus. Panic, he had learned, was very good at making situations worse. "All right," he said. "We fix it." "The system is not responding," Sarah said. "Then we stop asking nicely." Owen stood, moving quickly toward the core access point. "Come on!" Sarah followed immediately. Lyra was already moving before Owen finished speaking. The chamber felt different now, tenser, the air carrying a faint vibration that hadn't been there before. Owen dropped to his knees in front of the core, pulling open the access panel with practiced efficiency. The structure inside pulsed erratically, its light unstable. "Okay," he said. "That's definitely not how it's supposed to look." "It is destabilizing," Sarah said. "Yes," Owen replied. "I noticed." He reached for the interface, and it recoiled. The light fractured, pulling away from his touch as if rejecting him entirely. Owen pulled his hand back. "All right. Still personal." "It is prioritizing internal correction," Sarah said. "It is failing," Owen corrected. "We don't have time for it to figure itself out." Another pulse. Stronger. The entire ship shuddered, the distortion outside growing closer. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "We are losing trajectory stability." Owen nodded once. "Good. That means it's officially a problem." He glanced at Sarah. "Same method as before." She hesitated for only a fraction of a second. Then she reached for him again. This time, there was no careful adjustment. Her hand closed around his wrist with urgency, pulling his hand forward as she aligned it with hers. The moment their hands touched the core together, the reaction was immediate. The chaotic light stabilized, briefly, then surged. Owen gritted his teeth. Okay, that's stronger than last time. It is resisting, Sarah said. Then we push harder, Owen replied. He adjusted his grip, pressing his hand more firmly against the surface. Sarah mirrored the movement instinctively. The core flared. Light spread outward, the unstable patterns collapsing into something more structured. Come on, Owen muttered. You can do better than this. The ship shuddered again. Lyra stepped closer, her voice steady despite the chaos. You are stabilizing it. Barely, Owen said. It's like arguing with a very confident idiot. That comparison is familiar, Lyra replied. Owen almost smiled. Yeah, I've met a few. The light steadied further. The interface flickered back to life. Coordinates reappeared. Clear, stable, correct. Sarah exhaled slowly. It is responding. Owen nodded, not taking his hand away yet. Good. Let's keep it that way. The ship's movement shifted. The distortion outside began to recede, the stars returning to their proper places. Lyra moved back toward the main console, her hands gliding over the controls. Trajectory is stabilizing. Please tell me we're not heading into anything else dangerous, Owen said. There was a brief pause. No, Lyra said. Owen narrowed his eyes. That pause was concerning. It was a very small pause, she replied. Owen sighed. I'm choosing to believe you. The core's light softened, settling into a steady rhythm. Slowly, Sarah released his wrist. This time, neither of them moved immediately. Owen glanced at her. Well, he said quietly, that worked. Yes, she said. Her voice was different, not uncertain, not purely analytical, something else. Owen cleared his throat, stepping back slightly. All right, crisis avoided, ship not destroyed, everyone still alive. I'm calling that a success. Lyra returned to them, her expression calm but thoughtful. You function well under pressure. I panic efficiently, Owen said. We've established this. Sarah looked at him again, longer this time. You did not hesitate, she said. Owen shrugged. Didn't have time to. That is not the only reason. Owen didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the now stable core, then back at her. Maybe, he said. The ship hummed softly as if satisfied. For the first time since they had started moving, the silence that followed felt calm, not empty, not tense, just steady. And Owen realized with a faint sense of surprise that he trusted it, at least a little. The ship no longer argued with them. That was the first thing Owen noticed. Not that it had become obedient. No, it still adjusted systems in ways he didn't fully trust. But there was a difference now. It no longer resisted. It cooperated, sometimes even anticipated, which Owen decided was slightly unsettling. I liked it better when it was openly hostile, he said, leaning back in the pilot's chair. At least then, I knew where I stood. It has adapted, Sarah said, standing beside the console. So have I, Owen replied. I now assume everything is trying to kill me. It's very efficient. Lyra, positioned just behind them, allowed herself a small smile. That assumption has proven useful. See? Owen gestured vaguely. I'm learning. The stars outside move smoothly now. No distortions, no sudden shifts. Just a steady, deliberate course through open space. The crisis had passed. The ship was whole. The silence was no longer heavy. It was comfortable. Owen tapped the console lightly. All right, status check, systems stable, navigation behaving, no immediate threats, no unexpected proposals. We have not withdrawn them, Sarah said. Owen closed his eyes briefly. Of course you haven't. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but softer than before. The bond remains. Owen nodded slowly. Yeah, I figured. He turned in his chair to face them fully. This time he didn't look overwhelmed. He didn't pace, didn't joke immediately, didn't try to deflect. He just looked at them, at Sarah, with her sharp, searching gaze that no longer felt like analysis alone, at Lyra, whose calm had shifted from diplomatic distance into something more personal, more present. You know, he said after a moment, when I first saw your ship, I thought fixing it would be the complicated part. It was complicated, Sarah said. Not compared to this, Owen replied. Lyra tilted her head slightly. You are still uncertain. Owen let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I am. He stood, stepping away from the console, closing the distance between them. But not for the same reasons, he added. Sarah's expression shifted, just slightly. Explain. Owen ran a hand through his hair, glancing briefly at the floor before meeting their eyes again. At the start, I didn't want this because it felt forced, he said. Like something decided for me, for all of us. And I don't do well with that. That has not changed, Sarah said. No, Owen agreed. It hasn't. He smiled faintly. But something else did. The twins were silent, waiting. Owen gestured lightly between them. You're not just a situation anymore. You're not a rule I have to deal with. You're... He hesitated, then shook his head slightly, amused at himself. You're people I actually like. Lyra's gaze softened. Sarah didn't look away. That complicates things, Owen continued, because now it's not about avoiding something. It's about figuring out what I actually want. And what do you want? Lyra asked quietly. Owen considered that, not quickly, not impulsively. For once, he let the silence sit. I don't want you to stay with me because you have to, he said at last. I don't want this to be about debt or obligation or whatever system your people came up with. Sarah's voice was steady, but there was something beneath it now. The debt is real. I know, Owen said. I'm not denying that. I'm just not accepting it as the reason. He looked at them both again, more certain now. If you stay, he said, I want it to be because you choose to, not because you're required to. Lyra's expression shifted, something thoughtful and warm. You would reject the bond to protect it. Owen blinked. That sounds more philosophical than I intended, but yeah, something like that. Sarah was quiet, longer this time. Then she stepped forward, not in perfect synchronization with her sister, not with the same precise mirrored movement as before, just her. You believe choice is stronger than obligation, she said. I know it is, Owen replied. Sarah studied him, that same curiosity still there. But now it was layered with something deeper, something that no longer felt like analysis alone. Then we will choose, she said. Lyra stepped forward beside her, her voice softer. Not because we must, but because we wish to, Sarah finished. Owen let out a slow breath, tension he hadn't fully acknowledged finally easing. Good, he said quietly. That's, good. There was a pause. Then Owen glanced at them, a faint smile returning. Also, just to be clear, this doesn't mean I'm immediately agreeing to anything dramatic. Sarah tilted her head slightly. You are still resistant. I am consistent, Owen corrected. Lyra's smile widened, just a fraction. That is also consistent. Owen pointed at her. Exactly. He turned back toward the console, glancing at the navigation display. The path ahead stretched out into open space, uncharted, uncertain, and for once, not immediately dangerous. Well, he said, settling back into his seat, I guess that leaves us with one problem. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Only one. All right, several problems, Owen admitted, but this one is important. He looked back at them. We don't have a plan. Lyra stepped closer, her tone calm. We have a direction. That's not the same thing, Owen said. It is enough, Sarah replied. Owen considered that, then smiled slightly. Yeah, he said. Maybe it is. He adjusted the controls, setting a new course. Not based on urgency, not based on survival, but on something else entirely. All right, he said. We travel. We figure things out. No obligations, no forced decisions, no dramatic kneeling unless absolutely necessary. Sarah's ear twitched faintly. That condition is acceptable. Lyra's voice carried a hint of amusement. We will try to limit dramatic gestures. I appreciate that, Owen said. The ship responded instantly, adjusting its trajectory with smooth precision. No resistance, no hesitation, just movement. Owen leaned back, glancing once more at the two of them standing beside him, not as a problem to solve, not as a debt to resolve, but as something else entirely, something chosen. "Well," he said, a quiet grin forming, "let's try not to fly into anything interesting." Sarah looked at the display. "Define interesting." Owen paused. "You know what," he said, "I'm going to regret that question." Lyra laughed softly, and as the ship moved forward into the unknown for the first time, none of them felt bound. Only together.